This happened in the fall of 2020. I was a few years into doing urban exploration photography. Old schools, hospitals, storm drains, you name it. I had this obsession with forgotten places, especially those where something dark had happened. So when I heard about Hawthorne State Hospital, I knew I had to go. It was one of those places that barely shows up on Google Maps. A state-run asylum that was shut down in the late 1970s after multiple lawsuits, missing patient cases, and rumors of cruel experimentation. The building itself sat miles outside a dying Pennsylvania town, surrounded by woods that had long since swallowed the outer roads. Getting there felt like falling off the edge of the map. I went alone. People always say not to do that, but I'd done dozens of solo shoots before. I had my camera, a flashlight, and a pack of gear. I figured I'd be in and out in 2 hours. The second I stepped inside, I knew this place was different. The silence wasn't normal. It wasn't just quiet. It was dead. No wind, no birds, no creaks from the building settling. Just cold, heavy stillness, like the place was waiting. I started in the administration wing. Broken desks, smashed monitors, graffiti everywhere. I made my way through a surgery room, a corridor full of rusted bed frames, and eventually found a stairwell that led down to what looked like a secured records area. The door was heavy, padded like something you'd see in a psych ward. I had to really push to get it open. Inside was a massive records room, buried beneath layers of dust and decay. Tall shelves lined the walls, filled with patient folders, X-rays curled into tubes, even black and white photos of patients stapled to their files. It was surreal, like everyone had just walked out one day and left everything behind. I started taking pictures, but right away, I noticed something strange. My camera, a brand new DSLR, started freezing between shots. Each time I pressed the shutter, the screen would flicker, and the image would take longer than normal to save. The fourth time it happened, I lowered the camera to check the settings. And that's when I heard it. A soft, dragging noise, like something sliding across the tile. I spun around with my flashlight. Nothing. Just rows of cabinets and file drawers, all perfectly still. I told myself it was a rat. Maybe something falling off a shelf. But then I noticed something else. The room had gotten colder. Much colder. My breath was fogging up in front of me, and I could feel the goosebumps rising on my arms under my jacket. And then I started hearing the whispers. Not loud, not even fully audible, just the sound of words. Right on the edge of hearing. Like someone murmuring down a hallway you can't see. At first I thought it was the wind, maybe air moving through vents. But they weren't random. They were repeating. Same cadence, same number of syllables. Like a chant, or a name. I tried to brush it off, focused on the photos, snapped one more shot of a crumpled patient file on the ground, and that's when my flashlight flickered. Just for a second, but long enough for me to see it. In the far corner of the room, between two shelves, something was standing. Not walking, not swaying, standing. It was human-shaped, but completely black, like a void in the shape of a man. I couldn't see its face, if it even had one, but I knew it was staring right at me. I stumbled back, hit a filing cabinet, and the metal screamed. I aimed the flashlight again. Gone. I didn't waste time. I grabbed my bag, turned to leave, and the door was closed. I never shut it. It had taken effort just to open it earlier. Now it was shut tight. And then, right behind me, a voice, clear, calm, cold. It said my name.
Darren.
Not whispered, not growled, spoken. I didn't turn around. I didn't scream. I just ran. I don't remember how I got the door open. I don't remember half the stairwell. I just remember bursting out into the daylight, drenched in sweat, lungs burning, and the sudden rush of normal sound. The wind, birds, traffic somewhere far off. It felt like I had just escaped something I wasn't supposed to see. When I got home, I checked the photos. Most were normal, blurry but nothing unusual, except the last one. In the corner of that last frame, right before my camera froze, you can see it. A shadow, human-shaped. No details, no face, just a silhouette, darker than the rest of the room, standing between the shelves, watching. Out of curiosity, I searched for old staff photos from Hawthorne. Took a while, but I eventually found something. It was a group photo. Doctors, nurses, administrators. And standing in the very back, barely visible, was a man in a white coat with no name tag. Tall, thin, same posture. A caption below said the photo was taken a week before a doctor named Doctor. Lionel Vector died of a heart attack in the records room, alone. I haven't gone back since, and I never go alone anymore. This happened on Halloween weekend, 2019. I was in college at the time, and my friends and I had this tradition. Every October, we'd find the creepiest place we could and explore it. Abandoned houses, empty lots, weird trails in the woods. That year, we picked Briarcliff Asylum. It had been shut down for decades, and everyone in the area knew the stories. People said it was haunted, cursed, whatever. But the worst stories were always about Ward C and a patient named Lucinda Wills. She was institutionalized in the late 60s after she attacked her husband. According to the staff, she screamed constantly, for 7 days, never slept, never stopped. Then one night, they found her dead. She'd hung herself using a strip of bedsheet. People say you can still hear her scream in that ward. We thought it was just a legend. There were 4 of us. Me, my best friend Nate, his girlfriend Ellie, and our friend Chris. We climbed through a broken window just before midnight. Inside, the asylum was falling apart. Graffiti everywhere, glass crunching underfoot, the usual decay. But something about Ward C felt different, heavier. When we got there, the hallway was colder. The air felt off. At the very end of the corridor, we found the room that was supposed to be Lucinda's. The door had deep scratch marks along the bottom, like someone had clawed at it. Nate dared me to sit in the room alone for 5 minutes. Lights off, door closed. I didn't want to look like a coward, so I agreed. I stepped inside, sat on the rusted frame of the bed, and pulled out my phone to time myself. Nate shut the door. That's when the silence hit me. Not quiet, dead silence. No wind, no ambient creaks, like the room swallowed sound. About 30 seconds in, I heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping from behind the walls. Then again. Always in sets of 3. And then... The screaming started. It came out of nowhere, piercing, shrill. It wasn't like a horror movie jump scare. It felt real, like it was inside my head. I stood up. My whole body was shaking. Then I saw her. She was crouched in the corner, skin pale and tight, eyes wide open, mouth stretched impossibly wide, screaming silently now. Her head snapped toward me, and she crawled forward fast, dragging her nails on the floor. I backed against the wall, frozen in place. And then, everything went black. I woke up outside, in the grass. Nate and the others were standing over me. They said I was unconscious, lying just outside the building. No one knew how I got out of the locked room. I had fresh scratches down my arms. Later, we reviewed the camera footage Nate had been filming in the hallway. Everything was normal until the final minute. Then the audio warped, static, then shrieking, and finally, a voice, a woman's voice, whispering. She's still screaming. Then the footage corrupted. We never finished the video, and none of us ever went back. This happened back in 2016, when I was working part-time for a restoration company in upstate New York. We handled everything from fire damage to mold removal, but every once in a while, we'd get contracted to prep older buildings for renovation. One day, my boss told me we'd landed a big job, cleaning out and assessing the old Merriwick Asylum just outside of Kingston. I'd never heard of it before, and I've lived in New York my entire life. Apparently, it had been shut down since 1973, never reopened. No one bought the land, just left there, rotting. We were given a week to inspect and document each floor for structural damage. 4 floors total, including the basement, which the supervisor specifically told us to avoid until the last day due to flooding concerns. The first few days were uneventful. The building was falling apart. Ceilings caved in, black mold on the walls, birds nesting in the rafters. But the weirdest part was how much wasn't touched. Chairs were still set up in therapy circles. Papers were still in filing cabinets. Beds still made. It was like everyone had just stood up one day and left. By day 4, we started hearing things. Nothing obvious, just faint sounds. Doors clicking shut in other wings. Muffled footsteps above us, even when we knew we were alone. One guy swore he saw a face in one of the 3rd floor windows. But things didn't really escalate until the last day, when we had to inspect the basement. It was darker than the rest of the building. No windows, and the overhead lights were busted. We went down with 2 flashlights and a crowbar just in case the door jammed. The basement was colder and smelled wrong, like stagnant water mixed with something metallic. We found patient storage down there. Boxes of clothes, shoes, personal belongings. That's when I noticed one of the doors at the far end wasn't like the rest. It had a lock on the outside, and someone had scratched into the door itself. "Do not open. She's still inside." At first, we thought it was a joke, something kids had carved during a break-in, but the lock was old, rusted, original. We radioed our boss. He told us to check it anyway, said if it was a storage closet, it needed to be cataloged. So, we cut the lock. Inside was a small, padded room. Nothing but an old wheelchair in the center and restraints dangling from the wall. But there was something else. Scratches all over the padding. Deep ones, dozens, hundreds. Someone had been trying to claw their way out. Then we heard it. From inside the room. Breathing. We both stopped cold. It wasn't the wind. It was slow, wet, like something with fluid in its lungs. And then, a voice. From the corner of the room, behind the wheelchair.
You shouldn't have come here.
We didn't wait. We slammed the door shut and backed away. But before we could leave the basement, every single overhead light flicked on at once. Even the ones that were dead earlier. And in that sudden brightness, we saw her. A woman standing at the end of the hallway. Hospital gown, matted black hair, skin pale and sagging. She was barefoot, her feet soaked in something dark. She didn't walk. She twitched forward, like her joints were wrong. Her arms jerked with every step, but her face didn't move at all. And then she smiled. Not wide, not dramatic, just enough to show she'd seen us. We ran, didn't even close the main door behind us. My coworker puked on the way to the van. We didn't say a word on the drive back. We reported what happened to the project manager. He told us the basement had been used for seclusion patients, those deemed too violent for upstairs. One of them, a woman named Deborah Mallory, had been forgotten during an emergency evacuation in 1973 after a fire broke out in the North Wing. By the time they remembered her, it was too late. They never recovered a body, but the door was sealed, locked, labeled, and they never went back down. I haven't told anyone else this story until now, but sometimes when I'm alone in my apartment, I swear I hear that same voice whisper from the corner of the room.
You shouldn't have come here.